Welcome to the Lighter Side Show. I'm your host today, Grace. This is Graceful Insights. Today we're going to talk about indigo children, crystal children, and all-around empathic children. I have a few tips and insights to provide to you that I think we already know, but might find them a bit frustrating, so we like to overlook them. Or we already know it, but we don't know how to support these children's needs. I have Colleen with me today, and she will help me stay on track. Hello, Colleen.
Hello, Grace.
I did opt out of having tea today. Jamie's belly is feeling a bit wonky. What's nice about channeling is when you share a body with someone, we can leave it in a better state of being than how we found it. So looking at indigo children, and I'm quite sure a lot of you already have your definitions about what this is, but let's see if I can sum it up very quickly for you. An indigo child is a child who is very much clairvoyant and clairaudient, has a strong sense of knowing, but might not have a strong sense of empathic skills or feeling. And these indigo children are very much rule breakers. They already know that they're correct, they don't need your approval on it, and they can just push through any set of rules and make their own, and it's perfectly fine to them. Then we have crystal children. So we look at these children, and they're the ones who mostly have clairvoyant, clairaudient, and clairsensitive. They're empathic as well. So they have a strong sense of knowing, but they're not here to destroy the rules, to push against everything, but rather here to build community. They want family to stay together. Now, it doesn't have to look like a traditional family. I want you to have that in the back of your head. Family is community, is everyone supporting each other, no matter what the rule or relationship is. Does that make it clearer? Good, because I don't want you sitting here thinking, I know I have a crystal child, but yet my marriage isn't quite settled, and I would like to leave my marriage, but that might destroy my crystal child. So this line of thinking I want you to let go of. You must always do what your needs are. And in doing so, you will provide a better environment for your children and the people around you. Now, when we get into empathic children, these are the ones who might be a little bit more quiet, not really socialize very well, because they have this overwhelming ability to be able to feel what others are feeling, processing everybody else's pain, physical pain, emotions, and needs, and not knowing how to explain it because they think it is theirs, because they haven't been walked through in identifying what belongs to them and what belongs to others. So I would like to discuss these three today. We do have a mummy in the room, Colleen, if I may say so, has a child that fits this. Do you know which one?
I was thinking I have two. However, if I had to, at this very moment with my life experience and what's happening in the present, I would choose my 9-year-old.
Yes. I was rather focused on her as well because she's still in the school system and she's still understanding what is authority, why do they have authority, and why are they capable of setting rules that affects me. Because this is not explained when you go to school. The children are taught to behave, the children are taught to listen and obey, because that is what a good child does. But who is explaining to them, well, Mr. Smith came up with a set of rules that was abundant and good and healthy for a set of children, and this is why we believe they are good rules. No. They say, here they are, follow them, or else you get marks against you. And so we immediately put these extremely sensitive children, indigo, crystal, empathic, right into a reward and punishment system, which does not work. And I can hear a lot of your head's going, absolutely, that doesn't work. And it doesn't work at home as well when I try to bribe my child, whether it's through payment of money or games, whether it is food or trips or candy or whatever it is. When the child absolutely knows that they are correct, they will surrender all sorts of reward, which leaves you standing alone on an island with no power. And as an authority person, you don't want to be without power. But let's address that first. Why don't you want to be without power? Because as a mum, a dad, a care provider, that is part of your definition. You have the power to protect, provide safety, and know better because you have experience. And so therefore, when the little one looks at you and says, I don't care, send me to my room, take that away, I don't care, and they really do not care, then your power is stripped. But I say to you, power is not a definition of a care provider. I just want to take it away from you at the beginning. In moving forward from here, let's not stand on power. When we think of authority, let's start thinking in terms of respect and good communication. Let's not define it as power or strength or director. The director gives thy directions and everyone else must follow. So now that we have power taken out and respect put in, then we can start looking at how do we help our children stay safe, secure, and grow. And a big part of this with all Indigo, Crystal, and Empathic is trust. So may I talk about your Lily?
You can.
I do have permission to talk about Jamie's Luca as well. So here we have examples of a Lily and a Luca. Oh, that goes very well together.
It does.
So with Lily, would you like to explain or would you like me to?
Explain
Her sensitivities and her abilities.
I can briefly explain, and I think you have wonderful insight on it as well. I can explain it from my mother point of view, and you can explain it from your wonderful Grace point of view. So Lily is very sensitive, however, she's also very strong and very strong-willed. And she, particularly right now, is putting her foot down to school. And she is in a public school. And she's in a large public school, and that's very overwhelming for her. She has put her foot down, and we have decided to let her homeschool for the rest of the year and take her out of the environment that is causing her so much stress and discomfort. It's almost as if like her electrical circuit board has gone out.
Yes, it's fried.
Because it's so, every single button is being pushed every single day.
And I want to highlight, when we're looking at these types of children who really have held fast to their natural psychic abilities, the communities who are not aligned with identifying intuition or psychic abilities like to look upon these children as if they are slightly broken or that they have special needs. I enjoy that we look upon these children and say they have special needs, because in the act of doing so, we are demanding that this environment that Colleen is talking about for her daughter Lily change. The special needs is that we can no longer group children in general together under a certain set of rules and make certain demands of them, because the ones with heightened sense of psychic ability, intuitive ability, cannot function, and this is a very direct statement, cannot function in these types of environments. They have to make so many sacrifices that indeed they begin to hurt themselves. So with Lily in finding an environment away from school, and I want you to know, listeners, that the teacher and the school itself is very well done. The teacher is quite loving. There is no extreme abuse education system here. We're talking about a very well done public school. And so this goes to prove the point even better, that even if you're in a very good environment, but they are following an external set of rules instead of allowing the child to create their own internal set of rules, that in and of itself is too much to ask. Also, in looking at children's schedules, we are making them at a young age follow a very adult rhythm. Now take your moment and think about that. Because as we've grown and you've graduated from your universities, we've gotten jobs. We find that we wake up every day and we have an agenda. We have a schedule. And often we're woken up by the alarm, the great alarm. And it encourages you to get dressed, to eat, to leave the home, to make the money, to be a provider, to be an outstanding citizen. Well, little children don't need to have this rhythm. They are not yet trained to come out of the room and immediately adjust to something that we consider a daily routine. When we look at a daily routine, it is too repetitive for a child, especially a sensitive child, and it's telling them that they have no right to believe in what they need at their own time, because we are already pushing them that when you wake up, you eat, and that at midday somewhere you eat again, and we're already telling them when they're going to be hungry instead of asking, are you hungry? Let me know when you would like to eat. Because somewhere in our society we have said, if we eat together, it is proper. If we eat together, it is a good ritual. If we eat together, we are a good family, and we strive as a human race to be good. Now, what would change if you allowed your child to speak up and tell you when they were hungry? You might notice they eat less or more frequently, or even eat more. And in doing so, they're giving themselves exactly what they need. Oh, naysayers, I listen and I hear you saying that if I gave my child permission to rummage through my refrigerator, they would only gravitate towards the sweets. So why are they gravitating towards the sweets? Is it because you once used it as a reward and a punishment? Is it once that you said, you cannot have this, it is bad for you, and so you, as an authority figure, have chosen to remove this element from the child because you felt they were not responsible enough to have that accessible? So it was lack of trust, not respecting the child knows exactly what they need, and maybe a bit of lack of education. What is the sweet treat doing to the child? And if you think that a 4-year-old or 3-year-old may not understand your nutritional lesson, I dare say you have something else coming to you, because they are bright. Children can identify how food creates emotion in their body better than any teenager or any adult. So if you're listening to this and you're naysaying my words, I want to challenge you to follow through with an allergy elimination diet. Oh yes, it is very intense. It cleanses the entire body and it cleanses your palate. And you're able now to taste the food that you've grown so accustomed to. You're able to identify what is in it. Your sense of smell changes. And this is the system the child is using. This is why most likely they don't want to eat anything that you've created. But taking the time to allow them to taste everything, to let you know what they enjoy, to teach them what this does to their body, will make them better managers of their own physical need. And therefore your job as a care provider has been done. You no longer need to stay on top of them and say, bad choice, good girl, good boy, bad. This is all right and wrong and punishment and reward. And it's not going to settle with them because they know whatever they do is right. Even if it's viewed extremely awful behavior and created a lot of conflict, these children are going to look at it and say it's fine, which will indeed frustrate and rub you in many directions that you've never been rubbed, because you are aligning with right and wrong, and most likely aligning with how you were raised. I feel like many people think that if they don't really parent their child, it's like releasing them to the wolves, and they'll be wild, and they won't know how to be polite or maintain themselves or dress properly. But I'm saying to you, the more you parent a child, the more you are giving them what you like, what your approval is, and it's simply taking away the child's open fields of discovering how do they like to dress. Really, what is their favorite color? What is their favorite food or taste? Because if you are constantly telling them, this is my favorite outfit on you, this is my favorite, I love this, you look great, I love this on you, then they're going to automatically, in the back of their little minds, because they love you so much and honor you so much, will change the what they like to match yours to please you. Because they will feel that is the way they need to show love to you, because that is the way that you are showing love for them. So let's fall back into respecting them and trusting that even though they are little and making crazy allegations such as, it is a wonderful school and a wonderful teacher, but I refuse to go. Can you imagine hearing this from your child? When your child comes back to you with big allegations like this, you know, a lot of you want to say, you need to persevere through that. You need to suffer the way that I suffered. I didn't like school either. But you'll go through it, you'll get it done, and it will be fine. Well, this is unacceptable for sensitive children. They need to be heard, and they need to know that you, as an authority figure, are behind them, are behind their words. I'll be very on top of this with you and your children. Colleen had a wonderful example about food.
I did. So my oldest daughter, who is now 21, has a very strong dairy sensitivity, and she has had this dairy sensitivity her whole life. It's something that we recognized very young, probably around 1.5 or 2, because of her chronic ear infections. At that time, I stepped in and I really tried to no dairy, no dairy, no dairy. Well, as she got a little older, let's say 8 or 9, she wanted to start squeezing it in here and there. And I was losing my control of her and her food. Fast forward to age 13, where she's still sneaking it in every now and then. And now I will go back and say it was a dairy sensitivity that would make her have a very, very bad stomach ache. It was not life-threatening. We did not have to go to the hospital, anything like that. So I don't recommend that with parents who have life-threatening allergies. Age 13, she decided to go out, I think with some family members, and she had pizza and ice cream. And the next morning got so sick that from then on, she took control of her dairy situation and never ate it again. And all the control was taken away from me, and she empowered herself, but we had to let her get to that point of going, this isn't making me feel good. in making the decision for herself rather than me making the decision as her parent.
It's a beautiful story. And it would have been true at age 3 or 4 or 6 or 8
Mm-hmm.
if she had that severe of a reaction and she could link it back, then she would know. That was her testing her boundaries, and like you said, it empowered herself. And even for those parents who are saying, well, I don't have a child with allergies, but they're not great eaters, I want to say to you, getting back to daily routines that we are making our very sensitive, very high vibrational, open-hearted beings commit to a daily routine is quite suffering. Our bodies are not daily bodies. They are actually weekly bodies. It's very true. Our sleep patterns are not based on night by night, but they are grouped rather in several days. It is anywhere between a 5 and a 7 day cycle. That is why if you lose sleep on one night, that you can make up for it 5 days later. So it's not every single night. It's not like these hours are lost and you can't log them in. You can log them in somewhere else. But if we look at the weekly schedule, you might find that your child chooses to eat protein at the beginning of the week and then maybe fall into some veggies, but nothing else. Or then maybe a day of fruit and then some grains interspersed. But that over the entire week, they're getting what their body needs. So if we're looking at meal time and just what's on their plate and being disappointed at that individual meal, I think you're fighting a losing battle. But if you are to mark it down where the child can see it, whether you make some fun images or magnets, or if the child's older, they keep a food journal, so that they can see that they indeed, over the period of a week, are getting everything that their body needs. In this way, we don't fall into some kind of deprivation or some kind of, what's it called, when you don't have enough water? Dehydration. Because we can see that we have achieved this over this period of time. Also, when we look at school and learning and work, these daily things that we've put on our laps, what would it look like if it was stretched over a week? Have you noticed that you have different emotional reactions to a week? Now, personally, Jamie loves Thursdays, and that's why we choose to film on Thursdays. It is her favorite day. It is her favorite day because when she was a child, her mother would take a half day of work and she would get to spend the rest of the day with her mum. It has sat with her for a lifetime. So she then, at the beginning of the week, feels the slump. She's more introvert. She wants to be very one-on-one with people. She's very tedious with details towards the beginning of the week. Therefore, she does her individual readings. She does all her private sessions at the beginning of the week. And then Thursday, her favorite day, is her creative day, this nugget that we're having now. And then Friday, she finds herself extremely social. So she has all her meetings, gatherings, talks, inspirations on Friday. And then over the weekend, you think she would continue being an extrovert, but indeed she becomes a hermit. She wants to stay at home. So she starts nesting and doing all of the home care items. And then she comes back into Monday where it's very detail-focused, very one-on-one. And then the rhythm comes again. And so I've been very pleased to say that Jamie has laid out her work schedule to meet this natural rhythm. So now she has emotional support and a mental lineup behind what her work schedule is. Now, have we offered this to our children? We have not. And the school system isn't going to sit down and say, well, what would you like to do today? It's wide open. Because there's not enough money behind it, and there's not enough hands, and there's not enough eyes. But there are schools that provide it. So if you find your child is not managing the daily rhythm, 6 classes a day with a lunch break that is very small, and can't keep up with it, then look at a school that will. Or maybe it's homeschooling. So Jamie's son Luca has fallen into this as well. He's very much a crystal or empathic child. He's not a rule breaker. He cherishes a rule that's given to him and he refuses to break it no matter what. In fact, he wants to know all the details about that rule so that he can follow it even better than any other child. So it's clearly not Indigo. But yet, everyone around him must feel heard and honored and cared for. If there is another child in eyes distance that is having an upsetting day or being a bully or not being heard, then Luca then adapts to that and feels that and needs from the bottom of his heart to create that balance, because that is how he is made. Public school did not work for him. There were not enough eyes. There was not enough unity and community. It was more of teaching the lesson and moving on. It wasn't about building the child. So now Jamie has also decided to pull him from school and homeschool him. So in looking at your children, identifying the rules and why they are there, all the details of them, removing power and adding respect, in removing a daily schedule and allowing it to be weekly, even looking at showers, allow that to be a weekly thing. It doesn't have to be every single day. Hairstylists now have even confessed, right, if you're to wash your hair every day, that it's not really beneficial. Isn't that correct?
Mm-hmm. It strips, I think, of its natural oils.
Natural oil, it's been proven.
Shampoo companies want you to wash it every day.
I do think it says so on the instructions, doesn't it? Every day. Rinse and repeat.
Yes. Grace, I have a question for you. I think that it may come up, in the thoughts of our viewers as well. What is the difference between, I know you talked about the emotional differences of an indigo and crystal child, but there are certain books out there that say, the indigo children came in from this year to this year, and then the next years this has happened. This is, okay.
I really think we can throw this out the window.
Okay.
In the early 70s, yes, the indigos came in first. Almost as early as 1964 or 5. And of course, I believe they've been coming in all along, but now we have such high numbers of them that they're starting to be heard or seen as different. But the indigos came in, and I think we noticed them first because they're rule breakers, because they're loud. They push the boundaries. They decide if they can't find it anywhere else, they're going to do it themselves. We're looking at one. She'll just do it herself, get out of the way. And so that draws a lot of attention because it allows others who aren't rule breakers to enjoy that somebody else is doing it in their honor, because they will like how they're restructuring. They will like what is being left in the wake, in the trailblazing, and it will fit others that normally in their culture or their society they're not fitting in. So we believe the indigos, well, I shouldn't say believe, we identify with the indigos first because they are loud. And then we say crystal children came in after, or rainbow children. There's all kinds of titles, but really it's the rule breaker, the community builder, and the feeler. And this is what's allowing our enlightenment to grow on earth. Because we're not coming back with complete amnesia. We're not coming back with complete darkness. And the reason we are allowing so much of the indigo, crystal, rainbow, sensitive, empathic children in is because each generation is housing a better platform for the next. And that is how we are evolving. So, in looking back at seeing what your year is and saying, oh, well, obviously I was born in this date, so I'm a crystal child or I'm this, that's not how we release the troops. You come in as you want to be. I would more look at your characteristics of breaking rules, creating community, and feeling. Creating community, that crystal and rainbow child, don't necessarily like to take the rules down. They like to rebuild them. They like to redesign them and allow for everybody to be heard and everybody on one page. And I think a great example in this in the community sense and in business is the Google company. Notice how they tore down all their structures, that's the Indigo child, and the ones that came in and rebuilt and says, we're going to provide good, healthy food. We're going to provide gaming, nap time. We're going to provide a life within work. And it happened, and it's fulfilling, and it allows for more productivity. And there's plenty of studies about more productivity. There's a lot of studies done with schools who said, we're going to do PE twice a day. Physical exercise twice a day. And that shortens your educational hours. You can tell many people weren't happy. But what happened is that these children were more focused in those educational hours than any other school. And they had more time to play, more physical activity, which means they were fitter. And now explain to me, why are schools cutting PE? Some schools don't even have it. In fact, they send it home as homework now, that your parent has to sign off that your child has done 1 hour of physical exercise a day, on top of everything else that they've given your child to do, homework and studying for tests.
I've heard of schools taking away recess.
Yes.
For small children.
Absolutely. Because it's more important, Colleen, that they study. That was said very sarcastically. What we find is when we care for the body and we allow the child to be a child and not stamp them out as small adults, that they learn their lesson within 20 minutes. They don't need the 45, the 1 hour. 20-minute bites and their brain has received it and it's good, let's go play. And when they play, they solidify what they've learned. They process it. But if we throw them into the next topic, then we're stacking too much information and it's getting lost or watered down. And so with sensitive children, like your Lily, can you imagine all of the information being pushed upon her, as well as making her behave in a daily rhythm, that it is overwhelming? And it may be perfect for other children, but we're specifically talking about those that are still maintaining their psychic abilities. And so it have to be best as a care provider to say, I hear you, I see you, you are complaining, let me help you find a better answer. And that is not pandering to your child. That is not saying that your child is the parent, but of course you're going to get people looking upon you and saying, well, you allowed your child to do that, you're a pushover, you don't know how to punish them, they're spoiled. And I would say to them, are you jealous? Are you jealous that you weren't heard when you were little? Is that why you feel like you have to give me unsolicited advice about how I like to care provide for my child? And so it will really require you, care provider, authority figure, to let go of what other people say is the best way to handle a child. Let go of everybody else's opinion. Now, another thing in building trust. So, in relationships, any kind of relationship. Go ahead and think about all the relationships you have with your parents, with your children, with your friends, with your neighbor, with your boss, with your employees, all kinds of relationships. Somewhere along the line, we have decided if you have a relationship, that is what it is, a relationship. It no longer has to be worked upon. You've identified it, you've defined it, and you can move on. It is important that we work on our relationships. It is important that we check in. And it is a practice that I encourage across the board. But I'm talking to you today specifically about maintaining your relationship with your child so that it can build trust. And maintaining doesn't necessarily mean let's use a therapist or a mediator or a specialist. It could simply be that you have pen and paper and that what you've discussed, you have written it down, and that you follow through and you go back a day after, a week after, whatever rhythm you have set with your child, and you look at it again. And you say, do we still have this agreement? Does it work for you? Good, because it works for me. I like to keep it. That's like with most marriages I see in the world today. You put the ring on the finger and you let it go. You think that the relationship will just be sweeter with age. And most of the time, you're falling away from each other. Divorce rates are outstanding. They're the highest they've ever been. And I feel that more than half of those divorce rates did not have to happen. They happened because they didn't know how to communicate with their lovey, didn't know how to speak or share what their needs were. I believe that if you practice at communicating, that you will indeed find your connection, and then it will grow sweeter, but it builds trust. So with your child, you start with simple things. It could be the diet, the nutrition. It could be home responsibilities. Again, if you're looking at something that you were taught to do every day, make that bed every day. You have to make that bed. Sensitive, indigo, crystal rainbow, empathic children will not make that bed every day, because it's too much of a consistent daily routine that what they will find is not necessary. So then you say, well, I would like to see your bed made on the weekends. I'd like to see it made Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Can we start there? Absolutely, great. And identify, how does your child like to learn? Are they a visual child? Are they an audio child? Are they a kinetic child? And if you don't know, I will encourage a psychological education evaluation for anyone. Not even for the ones who are having a difficult time learning, I mean for anyone. Even you, care provider. Even you, Lumineer. Because to discover how you perceive your world and how you learn information is enlightening. Because then you can say to somebody else, I have a difficult time listening to you, but if you were to show me on paper, I would get it 100%. So discover how your child likes to learn, and then uphold that relationship with them through that means. Maybe they are visual, so the calendar would work really well. Maybe they're kinetic, so having deep conversations with a kinetic, sensitive child would mean go for a walk. Don't sit them very still across the other side of the table with you. They're not going to listen to anything. Put them on a trampoline, talk about their day. They'll open up. Words will fall from them and you'll think, I always thought when they were doing this they weren't paying attention. Give them a bouncy ball or rubber bands. They're not going to make eye contact with you, but they're processing everything. That's the ultimate goal. Not to get them to behave and sit still and make eye contact because it's polite. but to hear the information, to observe the relationship, to create that balance and that trust is more important. We can work on the small things later, like the eye contact. I've really enjoyed this talk. And I hope it has helped you understand kind of what to add to your family life or to the sensitive children that you are working with, and kind of what to reserve and hold back. I'd like to encourage you not only to move away from the daily routine and get into a weekly routine, but challenge why you believe in certain behaviors and in certain rules. And then once you have challenged that, I like the follow-up question for you to be, why do I care to do this? So an example, when the children are done with dinner, are they allowed to leave and carry on about their evening, or are they told that they have to remove their plate, their fork, their knife, their spoon to clean their station and then carry about their evening? Think about which way you were taught and what you would like for your child to experience and why they would need to care about this. So if they were to remove and clean their station after dinner, it would be the care for cleanliness, the care for the table, the care for closing up a meal, the care for helping whomever is cleaning the dishes or so forth. And it's also a responsibility of self. But it might be that you like to clean the table. And so I'd like for you to address why. Maybe it's the way that you show love. And maybe it's part of your meditation where you shoo everyone away and you're able to process what happened at dinner. And you're able to collect everything. And if so, I want you to convey that to your family and say, I enjoy this because it gives me time to find my center at the end of the day. It gives me time. Not that I enjoy doing all the work for everybody else, get out of my way, or I don't feel like you can carry the plate without dropping it. I want you to really clarify why you enjoy doing this and share it with your family. So since I have Colleen sitting here, I'm going to open up and ask, were there any questions about anything? You remained very quiet.
I did. You had so much good information that the one question I had was about the different, kinds and when they came in. What about touching briefly on, so the Indigo children started coming in in larger numbers in the late 60s. And so a lot of them, including myself, who was born in 1975, are now adults. So we're talking about all these children, but now we have these children that are actually adults now, and how to go through our lives as, sensitive, clairvoyant, and that's probably a whole nother episode.
But I would love to address that.
Okay.
Because it was you, the adult indigo, or the adult crystal, or the adult empathic, that made it possible for your children to really be seen and really be heard. Because if we took another parent who did not have any of these abilities and paired them with a child that was an indigo, they would see them as absolutely disrespectful, a nuisance, always creating conflict, always talking about the part that they were trying to avoid, always putting the finger in the wound, always in not really seeing that they were doing this because they were truly asking for a better set of rules, or a better way of looking at something, or a better way of being heard. And so then this parent would then encase or belittle or strip or remove this child to have them now follow through or abide how that parent was taught. And the ancestral lineage continues. But since now we have so many indigo parents, crystal parents, empathic parents, when their children are coming in, you are quite aware of what your experience was and what your needs were that maybe didn't get met. And so now you're watching for them. And you say, I have the awareness to give you what I didn't have. And therefore, we are growing by leaps and bounds with the numbers and the strength of these children who still possess their intuitive and psychic abilities. Think about what their children are going to be like. World domination. I tease. But yes, it's a right for every single one of us. And this is not about religion. This is not about the strong belief in a god or a goddess. This is strictly about perceiving and using energy. Subtle light energy. Because that's what thought is, that's what emotion is, that is what your physical body is. And they can collect information from that subtle light energy and know more than you have ever shared with them. And they feel more than you have ever shown them. So you think you might be wise by hiding things or avoiding things because you don't want to hurt that child because they're already sensitive. But indeed, care provider, that creates more pain. Respect them, be honest with them, and trust that they will tell you when they cannot handle something, because they will. It's time to see our children out there as the amazingly intelligent, creative, and strong people they are. Let's not make them adults until they are ready. Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed being here with you. I love you, Lumineers. Godspeed.
Thank you, Grace.
The lighter side with Jamie. The lighter side with Jamie. The lighter side with Jamie.